Okay, so can you please state your full name
Patrick Leo Kaha Vaiola,
and where and when were you born?
19 May 10th, 1945 in Hilo, Hawaii.
Um, can you tell me the full names of your parents and what they did for a living?
Antone Joseph Kaha Vaiola Sr. He was a equipment operator for Pacific Chemical and Fertilizer Company. And Rose Mauna Dart Kahawaiolaa was a housewife.
What was it like growing up?
Well, it's being raised on the homestead it was important, fun, close community. You knew everybody from the community.
So, did your parents move here or were they already here?
Well, my parents originally, my dad was from the island of Kauai, and a place he was born and raised, right around 1903 in Kapaia, Kauai, and my mom was from Hanamaui. She was about the same time in the early 1900s. They were raised in Hanamaui. Moved to Oahu, then eventually got their homestead in 1934 in Kiokaha. So my two brothers moved with them, and then I was the one born here in Hilo.
So they were born in the U.S., right?
Well, they were born in the territory,
Oh.
of Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
After the overthrow of Hawaii, the territory of Hawaii was created.
Right. And it was Hawaii.
They were not citizens of Hawaii till maybe, I don't know, 1956 or something.
So how did they get along with other immigrants, ethnicities?
Well, I don't. It wasn't about. It wasn't about during their time. When my dad was born, I still had my grandmother, or my paternal grandfather lived. I never knew them, but they were living in. They moved from Kauai to Honolulu. My dad tells me stories of he being raised only in the Hawaiian language on Kauai, but then he enlisted in the Navy in maybe 1917, and my grandmother, his mother, still spoke in Hawaiian. My grandfather was working then for I think it was this company, Honolulu Iron Works. So my grandfather had some form of education. My dad was just a sixth grade education. My mother graduated from Hilo High School, eventually moving from Maui to Hawaii Island. So yeah, they got along. You'd have to, I had to think that they got along from my mother's perspective. They got along fine because my mother was part Caucasian. My grandfather was half Hawaiian, half Haole. So it's that's what created. So, but getting along, I think they did well for what under the circumstances.
Right. So whose decision was it to move? Seeing as they're both from different
Well,
islands.
I'm assuming they got married and my dad got a job, and so they brought their two boys to Hawaii to get a job, and find a place to live, and they eventually settled in Kyoka.
Was it something drastic that made them move, or they just moved?
No, I think it was just economics of the time. I never had that discussion with them, but my dad worked for some 40 years for the same company, so I'm assuming that he liked his job. My oldest brother went on to work for the same company and retired there for Pacific Chemical. My mom, after I was born, maybe 5, 6 years later, she died at an early age. She was only about, I'd say, about 47 years old when she passed. But I was like 5 or 6 years old. So my dad never remarried. So.
So obviously they had friends. Did they have friends of different ethnicities, or they were kind of?
Well, I'm gonna have to assume because I grew up with a lot of uncles and aunties that whether they be Hanai or whether they be by blood,
Right.
that yeah, because my dad worked at the wharf, so he obviously worked with Japanese, Filipinos, Howleys, Portuguese in what he did. My mom, when she passed at a young age, well, that she always wanted to be a nurse, so I think she did some nursing work back in the early days when she was here. Took care of the church, the Catholic Church. That was probably her biggest obsession. Took care of us three boys, but yeah, I'm quite sure they had friends. You need to understand that back in their times, that the plantations was part of communities that you lived in. So sure, you operated and lived in communities. I
They were
can
like
talk
mixed.
to a Hawaiian from a Hawaiian perspective. You need to be from a Hawaiian in a Hawaiian community. Obviously, you needed to. There were Filipinos married to Hawaiians living in Kyoka,
Right.
Japanese married to Hawaiians, but basically it was you lived and raised your family in a community that was basically that embraced the values of Hawaiians. So that's who we were.
Was there any racial discrimination?
I can remember racial discrimination, not in the community, but
Right.
in the greater community. In growing up in Hilo, when I went to go and look for a job, 15 or 16, so that's the late 50s, early 60s. You know, there was a category in the want ads that stated that there was a preference towards Japanese people to work. The jobs were saying Japanese preferred. So if that's part of the racial discrimination that's
Right.
there, that's something that society needs to deal with. But I've got tons of friends, family, Japanese, howdies, but that's a societal thing that even you guys got to deal with now.
Right. So when your parents moved and you guys moved here, what kinds of traditions or practices did they keep and continue with you guys?
Oh, same. I think some of us when we sit and talk about it now at our age, guys I grew up with, we all did the same thing. Every family we celebrated a birthday, a death, graduation, made the same types of parties, did the Hawaiian thing with the emu and kalua pig, raised the pig, raised the chicken, raised the ducks. We did it all at the same, we all had it at home. We all had doing the same thing. So if we gravitated in a community, like I said, our communities was kind of closed at that particular point of time. Closed to the fact that if you were Hawaiian, you lived in a Hawaiian community, you needed to have this qualification to live here. So you just gravitated to things that were Hawaiian on the homestead. So we did the same things. All the traditionals that we did, you after a funeral, you went around the home. Didn't matter what time, but you sprinkled salt water around the house. You did those, whether they were Christian beliefs, but you still had, if you had a grandparent in your home, they still held on to the Hawaiian beliefs. So you needed to be able to move between two worlds. For me, it was that way. You needed to move between two worlds. One in the world where everybody believed that you had to do things that were society allowed, and then there were things when you needed to do as Hawaiians. You did, whether you did your ole, whether you did your moku au hau, whether you honored your past, whether you honored the youngs, the ones that died. So it was having to deal with it. You got to deal with it.
Right.
I grew up in a time where the saying was "Pa'akawaha hana kalima."
Mm-hmm.
Shut your mouth, do the work. There was no question. You don't question. You do it. Well, that's how I was raised. I bad or good, I raised my own children that way. My grandkids maybe they have a little reprieve, but not my kids. They're all your mother, same way.
Mm-hmm.
Just do what you're told to do, and then the world goes on.
So, do you know what your parents saw as their identity? If that makes sense.
Oh, they were always Hawaiians. They were always Hawaiians. There was no question. There was we grew up there. We celebrated things that were Hawaiian. There was no question. My mother, even though she was part Caucasian, always celebrated the fact, because her mother, my grandmother, was still alive yet when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
Before she died, was this Hawaiian. My grandfather, the Caucasian, he may have felt otherwise, but I never had that conversation with it. I never had that conversation with my own grandparents. But I had, whatever short time I had with my mom, she had a big influence on me. That we celebrated things Hawaiians, sang, did those things, same things that people did, celebrated. Like I said, they celebrated, did things that perpetuated the values of being a Hawaiian.
So, this is a question for you as well. What did your parents see as their place in Hawaii? Like, what did they feel like they feel like they belonged here, or
Oh, obviously. My parents, my kupunas, they came. They were here. They work here. They are Hawaiians. We are Hawaiians.
Right.
Even though they came from different islands, they did. My father was a staunch believer from Kauai. If you are born and raised on the island of Kauai, and it's not a myth. It's a fact.
Right.
That they do not. They do not have any endearment to Kamehameha Nui. They do not. They do not. For lack of a better word, they just don't honor Kamehameha as other islands would honor Kamehameha.
Right.
So that's the history. Knowing that, and I feel blessed that my father, I had no choice. He was my father. I didn't choose him. So his idea about Kamehameha, the Great, uh, is one that I respect and honor. That hey, don't tell anybody from Kauai about Kamehameha. They have their own history about it. So they were proud people. My dad was a very proud individual from Kauai, Hawaiian. My mother was maybe because of her being part Hawaiian, part Caucasian. Maybe she had to go kind of step in between both worlds. But me personally, I'm just proud of who the both of them are, what they did, what their accomplishments were in the world, how they raised us, how they took care of us, and so I think they all know. I know that they always believed and continue to believe that I do with my kids, your brothers, that we're Hawaiians now and forever. Hawaii mau mau. That's who we are.
So, what type of changes have you seen in your lifetime? Any type of changes?
The changes come every time, and you have to be prepared for changes. Cell phones. You guys don't know what else. You don't know what a typewriter is.
I know what a typewriter is.
Well, you know how to run. You know how to operate it. You know how to fix the ribbon. You don't do it. I know you don't, but you guys can go Google it and find out about it now. But changes, sure. I remember when we didn't have a car. Now I got 3 or 4 cars. Everybody's got something to get somewhere. Telephones, more than one in the house. Now everybody has one themselves. Refrigeration, TV. I grew up without TV till 1961. There was no TVs till 1961, and that's not a long time ago.
Right.
So we had no, and I lived in Kilcar. So I come from a place that didn't have, but I had families that I stayed out in Ka'u with that had no running water, and then I was there in '60s and till I left in the early '60s. But outdoor plumbing, so changes. There's a lot. But you need to appreciate the fact that it happened.
Right.
And so you just need to be prepared to embrace the changes and hold on to it. Really, you just need to hold on to it. Just don't believe that everything's right and nothing else. No, there is. It's always an opportunity to know that changes. Not everything is good.
Right.
Not all changes are good. So, but you just need to embrace it, know which one is, and then make choices in your life.
So your kupunas, your parents, whatever. What were their dreams and visions for the future that they put upon you?
Oh, I'm assuming that my dad thought he needed to be sure that we get a good education. My mother, I know, wanted it. So obviously, because I was raised in Kilcar, but a whole bunch of us, my brothers, my older brother and I, we were raised in a parochial school, private school setting. It's not something that I go around and talk about all the time, but that's what they made me do. I was their son.
Right.
I didn't say, oh, no, I didn't want to go to that school. You went to it. You did. So I attended a parochial school. My brother also did. My older brother, the oldest brother, well, he went to public school, but during the war, he left early, went into the Merchant Marines. The other one, when he got out of school, he went into the Marine Corps. When I got out of school, I went into the Navy, served in Vietnam. I wanted to. It was that's the passion that I needed to do. But it wasn't about there again, it wasn't about choice. It was things that you needed to do.
Right.
So that's what we did.
Needs and not wants.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't go. We don't. Well, I want a cell phone. Or I want to do. No, you got to do what you got to do.
Right. So this is the last question, but is there anything else that you would like to add to this interview?
No, just hope that what I've done to impact my family, and that's my children, your parents, your mother, your aunties, your uncles, you, my other grandkids, that they understand we did what we did because we needed to do it, and to make sure that the next generation can survive, and that's who we were. That's what we worked for. Myself, your grandma, your granny. That's who we worked to do, to make sure we could take care of our kids. We took care of, I believe, our 3 kids and our 5 grandchildren. So that's who we were.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, okay.